There for a while here, playing over the board chess here in Budapest. I'm International Master William Paschall. Hopefully we'll have some friends show up here and hang out with me. We're just hosting a short stream, maybe an hour, hour and a half. And gonna go over some games that I played in my live tournament that I am taking part in currently. So, without warning, I mentioned I might be streaming Monday, but I'm not sure if anyone's prepared for this. So let's see. This is a game I just played. This is a game I just played yesterday. Very, very interesting battle playing with black. The tournament I'm playing in is an International Master Norm tournament in Budapest, Hungary. So I was playing black. My opponent, Urhegi Martin, is a young FIDE master, rated around 2300. He played e4, I played c5. Now white played knight f3. My preparation here was primarily focused on the c3 Sicilian. I had already lost a game in a c3 Sicilian in the first round of this tournament, my only loss thus far. And this player has played this predominantly in his early career. There's also the possibility of knight f3 and then black having to face c3 on the third move. So this was my main concern. He also plays open Sicilian. He's been transitioning to an open Sicilian type repertoire, so I was totally expecting he might play d4. In any case, we had a surprise. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. You know, it's funny because he had played some games with d6, d4, pawn takes d4, queen takes d4, the checkover variation. And I thought he might do that if I played d6. That's why I played knight to c6. But after knight c6, bishop b5, I have a problem. My repertoire here is too narrow and I only have one line I play predominantly. I've always played basically just this one variation with d6. So this is a bad situation that I was already aware of. You don't want to be too predictable, and normally it's good to have at least two and hopefully even more options to keep people off balance. But in the current situation, I've been experimenting with the move g6 in some online games, which is one of black's main lines, but I don't feel my knowledge there is sufficient to really trot out this variation against someone who likely knows the theory better than me. So given the option between playing something I don't know that well and something that I know well but I'm expected to play, I decided to go where I have more experience. So I played d6, and now actually I thought the guy was going to play d4. This is a very annoying move. White can now back into the checkover variation with d4. Very few options for black here. I've actually jokingly played this, and this in a handful of online games. There's practically no experience here. Bishop takes, b takes, takes, queen takes c5. Black's behind development but has the bishop pair. But this has never been played in an over-the-board game. Strangely. There's no games in Opening Explorer. I mean, white's clearly better. Normally I would see this, queen back to a5, but this dubious variation. Black's too far behind in development, I believe. Maybe playable for a blitz game or rapid, but I don't trust it. So if he plays d4, I'll just have to transpose to the Moscow variation after queen d4, bishop d7. This is one thing that I was concerned about, you know. I didn't expect this guy to play the Roslimo. and I didn't really want to face this stupid variation in the first place. He was playing some weird stuff. He was playing games with like d6, d4 takes, queen takes, a6, c4, knight c6. Okay, queen e3. I guess this isn't that strange. He did some even weirder stuff. Like knight c6, queen e3. He was actually playing this, which is really strange. Apparently this is an actual variation. Twitch is being a weirdo again. What's up, Yuho? It's being a weirdo. It's pretty weird with me usually. I have a very shaky Twitch connection usually. Watching my own stream, not easy to do. So anyway, I'm just sharing my game from yesterday. Bishop e5 was an unexpected. Actually, I gotta be honest. I mean, I faced a lot of Rosslimo in my games here on the stream in the last couple of months. And frankly, I was looking forward to that because I feel like I've faced this a lot lately. I have a lot of practice. Like in the first round, I was hoping my opponent would play the Rosslimo rather than the c3 Sicilian. Now I get the Rosslimo, but my opponent is like not normally playing it. So what does that tell you? This guy is like prepared specifically for the variation that I play, and I have like I'm a sitting duck. I've got to play what I know, and he knows exactly what I play. He's like studied my games, probably here from my games on lichess. So we end up going to this variation, which I have a million games. He could have prepared very deeply. d6 castles, bishop d7, rook e1, knight f6. By the way, like a6 here, I don't like it. Knight f6, c3, a6, and now there's 4 different moves for white. You have to be prepared for takes, bishop a4, bishop f1, and even bishop c4. 4 variations, all playable for white. And I've had some shaky results against all of the above. The move that's probably the worst is capture. This is an old gambit. It's kind of gone out of fashion. Bishop takes d4 and bishop takes e4, and white doesn't have quite enough compensation. So that's probably the least problematic. He plays the main line, bishop f1, bishop g4, and now there's 3 moves, d3, h3, and d4. And I just lost a really bad game against Schieberspieler, who I think might have played h3, I can't remember. I've had 2 games with Mr. Slowhand in the last couple of months, or month. In this exact line, he played h3, which is not quite as scary. Maybe my game with Schieberspieler was like h3, bishop h5. I don't remember, but I don't really think I would go with knight h5. I've had several games with Mr. Slow. h3, bishop takes f3, queen f3, and like white is slightly better here. Lately, I was looking at e6. I usually used to play g6. The last game was g6. I maybe had like 3 games with Mr. Slow in our recent simuls, where I played g6 a couple of times, e6 the last time. He played a novelty g3 against me, which is an interesting move. So instead, my opponent played d4, and this is obviously prepared for me for this game by a guy who doesn't even normally play the Rosslimo. And Dragon70, who's been on my stream before, hanging out here, Tonat Min, International Master, played the same line against me. So I have an over-the-board game against Tonat Min from last year. Well, it was more than a year ago now, like a year and a half ago, in the Hungarian Team Championship. I have 2 games with Hey It's Miro recently here. Now we play CD, CD, and this is the critical position. Or let's see what the engine says. Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, I haven't looked at this with like Stockfish 13. Move 11 asked me, one of our other viewers, what's up, Agnes Karadewski? Tezek, good to see you. Guys, we're just going to do a short stream. I'm showing my game from yesterday. It was a really interesting battle. You know, this is a funny position. If you look at Stockfish 13, there seems to be no question. It actually looks like G6 might be a playable move. I saw there's one game where Akopian actually played E6. Sox versus Akopian, 2005. But it looks bad. I mean, after D5, I don't honestly know what Akopian was thinking. He was lucky to get a draw against Jula. Is Twitch acting crazy? That's a really dubious way to play for black. So, you know, here the thing is, black can play D5. If you look at the opening explorer, there are 106 games with E5, 105 games with D5. D5 doesn't even make Stockfish's top 3 choices. I actually sat there knowing that both moves are played and knowing like the basics of the variations of the two. And I thought about playing D5. Like, I didn't preemptively decide what I was going to play here. I've played E5 in one over the board game, and I've played E5 in most of my Blitz games, Simul games, but I have played D5 once or twice. But it looks bad. It looks very problematic after D5. This is playable, but the main move is push. And now the Black Knight has to retreat. And in either case, black has like a semi-passive game. I was prepared to play this. The knight is kind of closer to the center. White has these lines where he sacks a pawn. And it's just, there's a lot of weaknesses in black's position. The bishop's ridiculous on e6. So here the computer says knight c3, and white has compensation for a sacrificed pawn. Black has no development. I didn't want to get into this really, so I have to play, I guess, e5, and this is like critical for the whole variation. It's not really good. The engine says like plus 0.8 for white, so if this is 0.8, I don't know if this variation is really playable or not. You know, this is debate. This is the best I can do. So d5, it looks like e5 was better than d5. This is forced, and now bishop e3, and this is critical position. So I've played I believe I played bishop e7 against Tonadmin, which was an idea of Indich. You see here, Indich played it against Katsur Florian in 2018. And I had this game with Tonadmin, which followed something very similar. I basically sacked the pawn. Bishop takes, e takes. I don't remember exactly our move order. I lost this pawn on d4. I sacrificed it. But anyway, like, that's possible. This is the main line. Bishop e3. Knight takes f3 check. G takes f. And now this is possible. And I was looking at that, but this is the main move. And now white we're still in his preparation. And I don't really like, you know, black's position. I mean, I didn't know the theory that well here. I'm about at the end of my book. and I knew that a4 was an idea. I don't remember what Hey It's Miro played against me, because we had a game. I'll ask him this week. We had a game a couple weeks ago in this exact position. I don't remember if Miro played a4 or what he did here. I have the feeling he might have played like knight d2, and then black plays b5, and then white plays a4, and this pawn is a little bit weak. You know, I mean, it's possible this is white's superior. This is a non-game. Anand beat this tough guy, Garamian. Maybe that's white's better approach. So a4, we follow theory. I played bishop e7. I want to get developed. This is apparently a move. Paschall, wow. Paschall actually played this. Knight h5 right away, losing to Wei back in 2013. But I want to get developed. And look at black's score here. The main move seems to be queen b3. Castles. And I was actually concerned about this. I mean, this seems to be kind of critical. So I have to sacrifice this pawn, maybe another pawn over here. And I have no idea what's going on. The computer says that black has compensation. I would have been totally on my own here. But black has had reasonable score in practical games. Luckily, my opponent played knight a3, castles, knight c4, knight h5, knight b6, rook b8. And now we're still in theory, but look, like there's only 5 games. 5 games. White won none of them. It's unbelievable. So white's kingside is slightly disrupted. But he has like a kingside. I'm sorry, he has like a massive space advantage on the queen side. It's a lot like a King's Indian style middle game. And I'm very, well versed in playing the black side of the King's Indian. But here my opponent played King h1, the second best move according to the engine. We followed Arashenko versus Moisenko. And now I blundered. I'm out of book at this point. So I thought about Moisenko's move here. But I just didn't know, how I'm going to function with that knight on b6 tying me up. But apparently black is able to play like knight f4, f5, and bishop h5. Start to put pressure on f3. I felt like I had, I guess, fear of bishop h3, but this walks into knight f4. Or even bishop g5. I mean, that's actually the main thing. After king h1, bishop e8, I have the ability to play bishop g5 because my bishop's not attacked. Like, right, I can't play this, trading off my bad bishop because of knight d7. Apparently you can even play it. Wow. Well, anyway, bishop takes g5. This is funny. Well, that's actually possible. Schieberspieler, who also played this with white. That's funny, I didn't think I could actually play bishop g5. This is another candidate move for black. That honestly I didn't even think was playable. I figured I was just losing material here. Let's see. Knight d7, bishop e3, knight f8, bishop takes f2, and I guess I didn't realize that I could play this. You're 3-0. He's bragging about his score. 3-0 in the Roslimo. I thought you only played it against me once. I certainly remember one. Schieberspieler, the master of self-promotion. We should hook you up with Susan Polgar. Wait. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I was like, oh no, Of course, I wasn't happy to like see this guy playing this variation. Tonat Min did the same thing. Tonat Min like didn't normally play the Ras Limo. He went right for this line 2 years ago because I'm easy to predict. You know, I'm too I'm too predictable in this variation. I'm a sitting duck. So there's all these moves here. Knight f4. I guess bishop g5 is interesting. Bishop g5. Queen b6. White's slightly better. This bishop's strong. And the space advantage. My d6 pawn looks a little... Yeah, I was worried when he played this too. I just don't know the theory well enough. I thought I'm like clearly worse, but apparently black's fine here. So I have to play bishop e8, a5, bishop g5, bishop d3. Black has a good game there. Wojciech went on to win that. It looks like White has this ironclad space advantage on the queen side, but there's nothing he can do, and I can break with that 5 eventually. So, anyways, I misplayed it, of course. I came up with a bad novelty here, queen e8. The plan was to play bishop d8 and to oust his knight on b6. And obviously my queen, might be able to come out here and support f5 and this diagonal, which is currently occupied by the knight. But I could play knight f4, my queen can come out to like h5. The problem is he can grab my white square bishop, which actually happened in the game. And it's my good bishop. So I played this. He plays rook c1. I think that's a good move. Bishop d8. And now I thought maybe he would like come back or something. With knight c4 even. But he played like a typical move for this type of position. Queen b3. There's also some lateral defense. This is like really bad for me. Like bishop b6, queen b6, and this base of my pawn chain. So I can't take his knight. So bishop d8 like doesn't really do anything. And now I'm desperate. Like I realized, okay, I misplayed it. What am I going to do? I can't actually take his knight. So what can I do? I mean, I have nowhere to move my bishop. By the way, like, bishop takes, queen takes. This is nothing. He's just winning the base of my pawn chain. This is a really bad position for black. That pawn is pivotal to black's position. So I decided, this isn't like I hung a pawn. I mean, I decided to sacrifice a pawn here. I mean, f5. Originally, I was expecting this and thinking, okay, I can play g6. Looking at this like objectively with the engine, I'm glad that I didn't do this because black has a lot of weaknesses around the king side. And even if I avoid losing material, I was really concerned about this type of structure where my king is open, there's the g file, he has pressure like against f5, there's stuff with bishop h6. It's just kind of like a King's Indian where it's like better for white because of his bishop pair, especially the white squared bishops. The white squared bishop. The fact that he has bad pawns doesn't really matter. It's kind of like a winnower French, where white has like tripled c pawns, but it just like opens up the position for the bishops. So I actually originally planned on playing something like g6, bringing my knight back here. The more I looked at it, the more I like hated my position. Apparently this is possible. It's not that bad. Something like take, check, king h1, king h8, queen c2. But I'm like paralyzed to this pawn, and it's very difficult for black to really do anything. So I realized that, and this is like the best move. The best thing for me to do is just like lose a pawn. I mean, big deal. I'm like, whatever, man, you're up a pawn, but you have no passed pawns. This is actually not that good for him because of queen h4. So he takes this, and the thing is, he's like up a pawn here with the bishop pair. But what does it matter if objectively he's up a pawn? His extra pawn is frozen. It's Nimzovician, kind of principle. I mean, he's frozen. to that double pawn structure. He has no passed pawns. So, and it's how does he create a passed pawn? What good is it being up a pawn if you can't create a passed pawn? I'm able to blockade the dark squares. So king h8, best move. Rook g1, and now I play g6, and I was like freaking out here that he has a piece sack with bishop takes g6. He sort of picked up his bishop. I don't think he even thought about sacking the bishop, but his hand kind of hovered over the bishop briefly. I was like, oh my god, if this works, like, I'm gonna kill myself. It actually is sound to sack the bishop on g6, but it's like only equal, apparently. It's a long variation. Bishop takes g6, pawn takes g6, rook takes g6, knight f4, rook h6 check, king g7, like bishop takes f4, rook takes f4, rook h3, and apparently like white has compensation for the sacrificed guy. I think I go here now, but black's okay. Alright, anyway, bishop takes g6 doesn't work, so g6, bishop g4, and now knight f4, and I'm like, you know, I kind of feel like I've got a blockade now. I'm hoping he takes, because I'm a big fan of opposite-colored bishop positions, especially with queens and heavy pieces on the board. I really thought he thought a long time here, and I was really seriously thinking he might play bishop takes f4. In which case, I'm not sure white is better. White might even be worse. Computer disagrees. Thinks white is slightly better. But anyway, that was a safe thing to do, you know. That's probably what I would have done. I mean, when the knight goes on f4, I have a very strong piece there, and like, how are you going to get rid of that knight? That knight is going to be in your face, interfering in your position, causing threats around your king for the rest of your life, you know. Excel Poker just subscribed with Prime. Thank you, man. Good to see you. So this was a position where I like felt like I was safe for the first time after the opening, after misplaying the opening with queen e8. And okay, like if he played like bishop takes f4 and offered a draw or something, I would probably take it. But he doesn't, and now I expected rook c2 with ideas of piling up here. He almost looked like he was reaching to play rook c2, and then like he spent a long time on this move, and I think he just saw this idea at the last minute. He played rook c8, and like for the first time he actually had less time than me at this point, around this point. I think he just found rook c8 at the last minute. It looks strong because my back, you know, back pawn here, whatever we call this, backward pawn, this pawn is kind of weak. So I have take, and I'm prepared to sacrifice this pawn on b7 to go all in on the king side. And this was one of the moves that, you know, was the most critical in the game. I looked at weird stuff like d5, but I realized at this point, you know, this is playable. This is like the normal thing to do. I mean, then he can take on f4 though, for example. And I don't really like this that much. And if I take with a rook, I'm like losing the b7. So I felt like rook f7 was a safe move, maybe. But if I want to win, I'm gonna gamble here with knight e2, and that's what I did. You know, this move was played. Why don't I like the e takes f4? I think, well, I mean, obviously I lose the file. You know, I lose this avenue for my rook. You obviously wanna take the piece on f4 with the pressure against f3. And the other thing is that his pawns, yeah, you might get the diagonal. There's some compensation. There is the possibility his pawn could move forward and create a passer on d6. There's pluses and minuses about it. But anyways, that's the safe move to play, you know. But I decided to go for it with this, and I knew here that I'm hoping for rook e1. it's a natural move to play in like a blitz game, and this guy plays a lot of bullet. I checked him out on lichess. I scanned tons of his games. I mean, he's mostly playing like bullet chess. And the next move is like such a typical like bullet move. It's just like a reflexive response. This is like one of his worst moves the entire game. Yeah. So the sensible move here is actually rook g2. It's hard to find that. This helps defend his king side. But he auto-played rook e1, and I was like, he was holding his rook again, sort of hesitating. I was like, please, God, play rook e1. And he plays rook e1. And now the problem is, his rook is ridiculous on this square. It's awful. The rook is nothing on e1. It does nothing. It doesn't protect his king side. It's a target. It's unprotected. And it has no activity whatsoever. So now I play knight d4, because I think he was hoping for this, honestly. I'm pretty sure he's hoping that I play this, and like a Potzer go into this endgame, where he's just like better. The worst thing I can do is go into this endgame where like I've got my bad bishop down a pawn, you know, trade into like what was a very difficult endgame where I'm really down a pawn now. You know, this is what the guy was like hoping for. That's what he's hoping for. Get me to play bishop a5, trade into the winning endgame. No. So the point is, rook e1, I want ops-colored bishops. Knight d4. And now I've got some threats against f3. And I don't know what his best move is here. I mean, I guess he could take on b7. I have queen f6. And this is a big problem. Yeah. See, like, there's no good way for him to defend. There's no good way for him to defend f3. He's got serious problems here, right? So queen f6 is the main thing. So he has to take. After rook e1, knight d4, he's up a pawn and ops-colored bishops. But he's like worse now. It's funny. Pawn takes. I have like a pawn down, double isolated pawns, but it doesn't matter. Like, dynamism is all that matters when you play ops-colored bishop positions. Static goes out the window. So now I've got like chances to mate him. Obviously, like queen h4, bishop f6, bishop e5, game over. You know, I'm 3 or 4 moves away from like a forced mating net on the dark squares, and he's got no threats whatsoever. His sense of danger wasn't that strong, and he only now realized he's in trouble, but it's almost too late, and White has to be really careful. So apparently, like, this is the best move. That's not easy to find. He plays this, which seems reasonable, and this is a move I was proud of. You know, it looks like I should be attacking, but my fear is that this a-pawn queens. So although I'm prepared to attack this guy on the dark squares, I took the time here to like defend my a-pawn in case he starts grabbing these pawns. I don't want the a6 pawn to fall. That's the last bastion to stop his queenside, you know. So first I played a5, locking it down, and now he hesitates, doesn't take on b7. Instead he just plays this kind of lame move, queen d3, and I'm fine with that. Queen h4, and now this is kind of what I expected. Rook g3, and by the way, you know, obviously he loses if queen d4 check, bishop f6, bishop e5, or at least he's clearly worse. I mean, maybe he could sack the exchange like this, for example. You know, objectively, oh no, he's hanging a bishop, that's the problem, right? His bishop's hanging. Alright, so here, here, here. You know, for a minute I was like, wait, something f4? No, alright. Here, here, here. And now I was convinced he was going to sack the exchange. It's actually totally reasonable. I mean, give me this rook. He'll probably win a d-pawn in a lot of variations. He'll fix his pawn structure with either fg, you know, most likely fg in most positions. Instead, he's like Mr. Materialistic. I was shocked. You know, this is fine for white. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen f6. I mean, I think he has compensation for the exchange here. My pawn is kind of weak. That would be what a lot of professionals would do, but instead he was very materialistic. He plays rook g2, and now black is like clearly better, maybe winning. h5, bishop e6. Apparently I missed a strong move now. I really wish I could get my rook to the c file, but I can't. I can't get my rook to the c file. Maybe it was g5 or something weird for black now. No, queen f6. Okay. I don't know why. Queen f6 is better than queen f4. Did I hang my g6 pawn? No. I don't know why this is so much better than queen f4. But anyway, apparently this is better. And then we're both in time pressure, and the crazy thing happened. Where I played queen I played queen f4. I don't know what his best move is. Queen b3, apparently a blunder. And at this point we had like 5 moves to make the time control, and apparently like queen d2 is winning. This move never occurred to me. My main idea was to just take here. You know, I think after this, I'm clearly better. Queen takes f3. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is like winning. Queen f3, rook f3, and then he's paralyzed, and this pawn is very, very strong. So this is simply winning. This is such a funny way to not win the position. I knew I could take. We're both in time pressure, but I decided to just force him to repeat moves. It's ridiculous. You know, I didn't see queen e2. So I blew it here. I could just take, and I'm winning. But instead I'm like, no, I'll just play queen c1 check. He'll play rook g1, then I'll play queen f4, then he'll repeat moves with rook g2, and then I'll take on f3. This was the plan. Check, rook g1, I go back to f4, and now when he goes here, if I repeat again, he'll claim a threefold repetition, like rook g1, you know, queen check, rook g1, queen f4. He can claim a threefold repetition by rook g2. So the plan was I would check once on c1, and then when he goes back, I'll play queen f4, and he plays rook g2, and now I take, and we'd be like, you know, 3 moves from the time control. But what happened was horrible. He either saw it, or he was like playing for a win in a worse position, or almost lost position. So he does like rook g1, queen f4, and I almost like fell out of my chair when he played king g2. This is ingenious. So I totally like, I just totally blew it. I totally blew a winning position. And now we're like 3 moves away from the time control. And f3 is holding. He's escaping out here to like the white squares. And suddenly he actually has like threats against my white squares. And I have no good way of protecting b7. So this is where I like kind of got upset psychologically. I don't know about queen h2. This was the best according to the engine. The engine has some line like queen h2, king f1, and h4. But I was afraid to like lose my pawn here, I think. I really have no idea. Maybe that's not the best line? Yeah, that was the best line. Or maybe king h7. King h7 is scary, like losing this with check. I'm not even winning now, it's like a draw. According, I totally ruined my position. So I'm freaking out, and so I'm thinking, okay, the only thing I do is try to play g4, g5, but g5 is a terrible blunder. g5 is a horrible blunder. Maybe even d3 is a better move. Like, you were talking about the diagonal. That would give me some chances. Sack that pawn or trade it for the b pawn or something. Be afraid, welcome. But this was kind of a disaster. Because I gave up the f5 square. You know? But we're like 2 moves away from the time control. And now he plays bishop f5, blocking my threats. And he's got mating threats against me. Queen h2 check, king f1. Material is equal. Obstacle at bishop's very sharp, but suddenly white has threats for the first time on the white squares. And I have a hard time defending my white squares. Basically, like, impossible. Rook f7, and then queen c2 threatening to penetrate down here. And this is my 40th move. So I'm, like, freaking out. Queen f4, check, king g7, and then bishop e6, rook f8, queen d7, check. And now I have time. We have 30 minutes more, and this is my last game. Tournament is okay. Thanks for asking, Be Afraid. I've got another game today. 3 rounds left. I have 3.5 out of 6, which is okay. Slightly above my expected score. Right around what I'm expected. But anyway, this position I completely, like, had a total misconception about what was going on. I thought I was lost if I don't sack the exchange. I had this crazy thing. I thought I was, like, losing if I don't play king g6. I thought if I play king h8, bishop f7, bishop g7, he's coming in here and going here and here. I was convinced I'm lost in this position. There's also, like, you know, check, here, check. Yeah, king h6 is also... I also convinced myself that king h6 is also bad. King h6, bishop f5, bishop g7, queen check, rook f6, queen e8, with the idea of this. But maybe around here, you know, I would have had a really good exchange sack. Perhaps, you know. Actually, no, this would transpose to the game. It would have been very similar to the game. I haven't looked at this with a computer yet, but it's showing me, like, variations that are equal. This wasn't a cheapo. I thought I was forced to sack the exchange. And the computer says I'm not forced to sack the exchange. So I missed something major here. I don't understand what it is. King h8, bishop f5. Like, I wanted to play this, but I was convinced that I was in trouble. Now, how do I defend? Bishop f6. Damn. That's what Jernblad just said. Well, in a similar position. I completely didn't see this. It's really weird. Queen e7. Threatening g5. And now I have to play queen c1 check. And then king g2 and I go back. So it's okay if I play that move. Apparently it's still slightly better for white. Like rook h1, h4. He's creeping around, like, trying to set up these mates. But I guess I'm just holding on. I just barely hold it. The blockade. I was freaking out. I thought I was lost. And he was, like, staring at me with this, like, confident look. And I also looked, like, my main variation was actually king h6, first of all. And now here, in this light way, apparently I also misevaluated. Bishop g7, he still can't make progress. Queen e6 check. Bishop f6, queen d7. Bishop g7. Really weird. It doesn't seem like he can necessarily make progress. I was convinced that he could make progress. So basically I convinced myself that I had to sack the exchange. But ended up, like, working out. After king g6, check, here, takes. I might be lost here. I don't know. I didn't check it with the computer. E takes F. Not deeply, anyway. The problem is this check here. If he trades queens, I'm golden. And this is very much like the game. With active king and 2 passers, like black's just winning. But the problem is he doesn't trade queens on my terms. He plays queen e8 check. I have to play this, and then he plays queen e6 check. And if I take, I'm lost. This passed pawn is too strong. Queen trades are welcome, but not just any queen trade. This is not a good trick. So I have to go here. This is only move. And this is like where, you know, this is where the experience of having the nerves in intense situations makes a difference. Basically, black isn't capable of making progress. I can try to keep a blockade. I might be able to draw, like b6 and just sort of hold a fortress. It looks like king g2, b6, and I'm like paralyzed. Maybe I'm lost. I don't know. Maybe he can't make progress. Again, I think the important thing is that he does not have a passed pawn. I mean, you can be up the exchange all you want, but if you're not, you know, able to create a passed pawn, it doesn't look easy to win. But he blundered, like, terribly now. I mean, he traded queens on my terms. And after trading queens, king takes, my king just walks in. I guess he figured he can't lose. He's up the exchange. Well, you know, you can lose. It looks like it might be a draw with perfect play. After king f5, you know, or king g6, he has to decide which way to go with his king here. Which isn't easy. I mean, I have 2 passed pawns. So pick a pawn. It's looking like it might be a draw, but it was a terrible blunder to play queen g6. I mean, honestly, this is like largely affected by time pressure. He had like, I don't know, 10 minutes left when he played queen takes g6. So he started to be like nervous that the time was going to be a problem. And you have to just keep the tension here. Black and white are both sort of frozen. I mean, I can move my king with like king g7 or something and try to get out of the pin and then make progress. But it looks like it's a draw. But he takes here, king g2, king f5, and now he has to play like perfectly not to lose. Normally active defense is the key. But he can't let me play bishop f4. When my bishop goes to f4, it will lock down those 2 pawns, you know, supporting both pawns going to the 7th, and my king is just like eating this d5 pawn. It's game over. So basically he has to play rook d1. That's the only move that keeps pressure on the d pawn to keep me from being able to play bishop f4. And maybe this is a draw. I mean, there's some way I can try to win. I could try to like walk my king around the other side or something. I don't know. I could try to play g4. It looks like it's a draw. Yeah, I mean, he actually has rook e3, rook b3. I think I have to be careful. b6, rook e3, bishop f6. King f1, king e5. Okay, so I can play this. What I can do is I can play this and then walk my king over and eat the pawn that way. I don't have to play bishop f4. b6. I don't know, let's say rook d3, bishop f6. If rook d3, I can play bishop d8. It's just a draw. He has to go back. Well, I mean, it's not actually an easy draw, though. Why can't I play king e5 here? He has some kind of miraculous move. f4 check. King e4. So, he'd have to play like God, basically. to save this. If he played like perfectly, it's a draw, it looks like. But he played this natural move pretty quickly, and it's over after bishop f4. This locks it down to d2. This is coming down to h2. And my king just walks across in most variations. He tries to play this. And if he grabs my b pawn and plays like b4, I mean... Plus he wants to get behind here. But the problem is, that's fine. I have this. And now... The funny part is, if he tries to get behind my h-pawn, I can just stop him. Like, for example, rook c8, this is so cruel, like here. I just control the queening square. And then the both pawns are going down. If, like, here, I can play king g6. I wonder, though, how would this work exactly? He plays rook c8. Maybe he can still save the game. What did I say? This? Oh, I have just d3 now. Okay. Never mind. Yeah, so bishop e5 just wins. But apparently I have other wins, like this is enough. He's lost after b6. Rook here. d3. King f1, h4, rook b6, h3. And then the funny thing happened. Rook b3, d2, rook d3. And I made a stupid move now. I should just play h2 and then like g4, which basically happened in the game. But Cheryshev, which I read, you know, many times in game strategy, the #1 principle in endgame strategy, which is one of the most famous endgame strategy books and endgame books, period, of all time, is do not rush. So I realized, like, he's basically, he can't do anything. Like b4, I just take it, by the way. So I play king f6. If, for example, b4 takes a5, b3, I mean, that's the point. There's no time for this, because I'm just coming down. You know, it's 3 pawns in this position. He has no active counterplay. So this is inaccurate, but it's still according to principle of do not rush in the endgame. Then I realized the winning plan. Here, king g2, king e5, and now the funniest part of the game. Like, for the first moment in the game, I was 100% sure I was winning. Literally. And he literally, in that moment, offered me a draw. I was like, wow. So, it's just kind of ironic, you know? Like, he tried to kill me the whole game, and offers me a draw the moment he has a lost position. Like, you know, he doesn't seem like a bad guy, but was he offering a draw because he knew he had lost position, or was it just like he was really thinking it was a draw? Seriously. Because if you look at it right, it looks like black can't make progress. My original plan was to come across over here. King f6, king e7, king d7, king c7 over here. Let's just see. You know, king f6, rook d4, king e7, rook d3, king d7, rook d4, king c7. Let's say like b3. King here. King h1, king c5, rook d3, king d4. I mean, I think I'm winning, right? Like, going around the long way. That was my original plan. I mean, is there any way he can actually stop that? Just theoretically. There's nothing he can do, right? Here? I hallucinated he had something here. Is there some way to stop me? He can play b4 in this moment. Wow. And if A takes B, it's a draw. That's crazy. So now I win by this. Check, takes, and takes. Oh my god. And I walk up here and I escort the B pawn down. That's very complicated to be sure about. Bishop E5. And then B3. So there was multiple ways to win. You know, I just thought it was kind of insane. Why wouldn't the rook go to C4? I queen. I mean, the only time he can play rook C4 is when I... The only time he plays C4 is when I'm on C7. King C7, he can play a check. But after this, he's stuck. He has to go back here. You know, he can go there, but he can't stay there. So he's lost. Here. He's just clearly lost. So I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, my original plan works too. But I was able to win more elegantly. This is kind of funny. Like, I played rook d3 and then g4. It's like I'm already down the exchange. And then... But it's such a beautiful move. You know, I couldn't resist playing this. Because his king is tied down to h1 and his rook is tied down to d1. And when I capture on f3, if he lets me capture on f3, he can't recapture without allowing a queen. So he has no moves. He's like up the exchange for nothing. I just totally lost. Now he's up the exchange and a pawn after f takes g4. And then the king. But this is elegant, you know, because I have king centralization, perfectly placed bishop with two split pawns, active bishop, and now his rook is dominated and nowhere to go. I would have resigned here, but you know, objectively, he probably did the right thing. There are some tricks left. I'm not sure that I played this really right. After rook d2, bishop d2, king h2, this is very important that this pawn queens on a dark square. If it was, you know, if I had a white square bishop, I mean, I guess this position might be a draw. I have no idea. But you always want your rook pawns to queen on the color of your bishop. So, king d5, king g2, king e4, f3 check. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to play here. I don't know. You know, I didn't like letting his pawns start to go like that. So I played this here. I just created like a blockade. And the problem is, like, he has some tricks with like b4 in some positions. If he can create a situation where he can create another passed pawn and have this and that, and my bishop, you know, can't defend both ways, he could draw or even win, theoretically, while his king blockades my passed pawn on d3. But it just never really can happen. So it was very close. b3, now I decided to play this. That's probably inaccurate. g5, king f5, f4, bishop f8, and now he goes up, and I take f4, and if he takes this, I just take this and it's over. My bishop goes here. And he can't save that position, that's why. So, I take this, he plays g6. I was also worried about b4. For some reason. But I think I can just take it. And if here I can go back. Yeah. And then here, 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 and here, and here. So he's just too slow. G6, here, B4. Now I can't take it with the bishop in that line, but he didn't see this. I didn't want to calculate this because it involves like a lot of moves. I don't know why the table base doesn't see this, but the move in the game is easier. I just play this, and now I key pawn stays on the board, and if he plays pawn takes pawn, I just play king d6. I check him with bishop g7. I have a protected passed pawn by the bishop, and I just walk over and like eat his a pawns with my king and easily win. So he played b5 instead, but now it's the same thing. King d6 here, here, and now he's like, you know, frozen. He can't approach my pawn. Here, bishop e5, optimal square in the, you know, in the ability to protect that pawn and that pawn. Here, king e6, and now I'm threatening to walk over and just grab it. And this was weird. Like he should have waited till my king was far away. He just sort of freaked out and played b6. But he should play like king e3 at least. You know, then king f6, and then try like b6 there. Well, my king is out of the square. King takes g, b7. I come back. I guess it doesn't matter. He just lost. So b6, king d6, and I'm just gonna eat this pawn, and he resigned. But that was crazy. The opening was okay, but I learned something. The bishop e8 move was a massive improvement. This was the key takeaway from the opening. We had king h1 this game, Arashenko Moisenko, and I made a very bad mistake here with queen e8, which is a terrible novelty. My plan of playing like bishop d8 was the wrong idea. I should maneuver bishop e8, and black is fine. Exactly what happened in this game. Black's trying to play like bishop g5 now, and black has a free enough game, the ability to play f5. So I made a blunder in the opening with queen e8. I was worse. I survived, and then I missed a clear win here with just like queen takes f3. This kind of endgame, you know. So I made a couple of very serious mistakes. First of all, I was worse after the opening blunder. Then I missed a clear win, and then I was like still better when I made another mistake. So there's a lot of battle going on there, and it was really back and forth. But lucky to get a full point. So I've got 3.5 out of 6 playing Severanianum today, and then I've got two of the higher scoring games. Schieberspieler, are you out there? Did you check out the results from my tournament? Because there was something very strange. I didn't understand. The other game from round 5, round 6, it doesn't make sense. It says that Juhas drew with the guy from Guatemala in a winning position. I don't understand. Like, they left before my game finished, and I just assumed when I walked out of the room that Juhas won. But then I looked at the cross table, and it says it was a draw. Like, White's last move was just a totally winning position. So I thought maybe they screwed up and, like, you know, put the king on the wrong square at the end of the game, which tricks the DGT board into thinking that it was a draw instead of a win. I've done that before, but I haven't had any confirmation or anything. It's important because I have to play those two guys in the last 2 rounds. And, you know, it's obviously important if they're in contention for an IM norm. They were playing each other in this last round. And it totally will be important to know how motivated they are against me. Yeah, I think that Juhas had to have won. I mean, it must have been like they put the kings on the wrong squares at the end of the game. So that'll be a key game for me in round 8. I'll have to play against Juhas with black, and then the Guatemalan guy in the last round. But anyway, it's been fun to play over the board again. You're 1-0 in broadcast. Oh, it's 1-0 in broadcast. Oh, they fixed it. Okay. All right, that's because I checked it last night and it was still 1/2. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Just a short stream today. I'm gonna take off, and we'll be back to a normal schedule from Wednesday. Perhaps I'll create a tournament for tomorrow night. Last week, not too many people showed up for our thematic tournament, disappointingly. I won't be able to play Tuesday night, but I will create another arena, or rather, I'll create another Swiss tournament. If a few of you want to play for tomorrow night, Blitz tournament tomorrow night. Blitz or Rapid, I'll check it out. But our stream schedule will go back to usual from Thursday. Thursday subscriber stream. So if you guys are subscribers, we'll submit games. Everybody should submit their games to Yabatis or myself for Thursday's stream when the schedule goes back to usual. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the game. It was certainly fun. Just a short stream to keep everybody in the loop. And we'll be playing a couple more rounds and back to streaming from Thursday. I'll see you guys later. Thanks, Princess Chess. Good to see you. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.